So our next speaker is Jane Mather. So Jane actually lectures on the two-day course, but this session she's going to be bringing you the results of the survey that we carried out.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. As Mike said, my name's Jane. I now head up the probate practice since Mike's retired. And I do lecture on the course. I help put the course together. Out of interest for you, we've had about 600 people already pass through the course. As Mike was saying, initially only ICAEW members could become accredited, so not everybody has sat the exam. And I do recognise some of you in the audience today who have been through and successfully passed our exam. Well done. The vast majority of people that do attend the course do pass. There is a pass mark of 50%, but if you fail, all is not lost. You can keep going till you do. We have got one delegate who's on his 7th attempt. He's 75 and he's damned if he's going to be beaten by an exam. And I just changed the slide by hitting the stand, sorry. But my job this afternoon is to tell you about our probate survey. We thought it would be interesting, seeing as we've trained so many of you, and not everybody has yet applied for accreditation, just to get an idea of what the view of accountants are to this offering, which is the probate service. So in December, in conjunction with ICAEW, we did launch our survey. It was open for 3 months, and the findings actually don't say anything really unexpected, it has to be said, but it is interesting to look at not only the statistics, but the comments that are made by practitioners and the views that they have in relation to probate. Now, clearly, I've only got, well, shaved off 5 minutes, but I've only got 25 minutes to talk to you about the findings of this survey. If you would like a copy of the full survey, which has the numbers plus the comments from the respondents, then please see the guys at the back there on the SWAT stand, give them your email address, and they'll be able to forward you on a full copy of the survey for you to look at your leisure. I know those of you that did respond to the survey, hot off the press, received a copy this morning, because some of you have told me you read it on the train on the way here. So well done. So what did we cover in the survey? We covered a lot of topics. Firstly, why would you want to do? Why would accountants offer probate? We also looked at how you're going to charge for the work. You know, we've already had indications from Mike earlier that solicitors certainly make their money out of probate, don't they? They charge quite high fees, and the same can be said for banks when they're offering this service. We also looked at, you know, what's your view to probate? Is it going to be the new service, or is it going to be sort of a slow burn that's going to grow as time moves on? We covered your structures, your pricing structures, and also your approach to launching the service and marketing it. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about that. Mike's going to cover that in his session after the break. So the survey itself was split into 3 separate surveys, covering those firms that are already accredited to carry out the work, bearing in mind that some of those are only very recently accredited. I think there were only 13, and I have to refer to my notes for all these numbers, 13 that were accredited for more than 1 year. You know, the vast majority were, you know, within the first 6 months of becoming accredited when they responded. We then had another survey for those that had sat our assessment but hadn't yet applied to become accredited. And then another one for those of you that are sort of sat on the fence and sort of trying to work out if you are going to go down this route or not. And I imagine for a lot of you today, you're here asking yourselves, is this something I want to do? So it might be useful, as I say, to hear what others have got to say. So in total, we had 179 replies to our survey. And as I said, if you want the full lot, see the guys at the back in the break. The question, why would I become authorised? Why would I, as an accountant, want to provide this reserved legal service? And as you can see, I've sort of summarised some of the key comments. I have to say my favourite one up there is it's more interesting than doing accounts and VAT returns. But the more common, or the most common thread running through, was the ability to offer a complete holistic service to our clients. cradle to grave service. We can do the whole lot. And I know a lot of you already will have done estate administration work, but then have to stop, hand it over to the lawyer, who can sometimes take rather a long time to take it through the probate process, and then perhaps pick up again and help with the administration. Now, actually, the first box up there is there were a number of you, and I'm sure none of you in the room, that were actually already doing this. So I think the first raft of people that we had through our course were those that were trying to regularise their position. Now, the problem was that it's been a bit of a grey area as to what is probate work, what can we or what can we not do. And there is no definition other than the definition in the Legal Services Act of what is probate work. And basically, the probate work is literally the bit where we apply for the grant. And therefore, probate services are completion and preparation of papers to take out or oppose a grant. And that's the bit you can't do. Now, there have been suggestions in the past, and obviously you can't do this by way of business. If it's a personal appointment and we're not charging, that's different. But by way of business, if we want to charge for that, we need to become either licensed or authorised. There were sort of commentators who suggested that, well, we'll charge for the bit where we do estate admin, we just won't charge for the probate bit. And that was sort of pushing the boundaries a little bit, but there were no boundaries originally. Now, Pat didn't mention, but the ICAEW have published a regulatory advisory notice. And for those of you who are considering whether you're going to go down this route or not, I strongly recommend that you read that, because it now sets out a regulatory framework within which you can operate. And it deals with what licensed firms can do, what you can do without a license, and it also now, it was updated in March, deals with what you can do if you are appointed as an executor to a client's estate, but your firm is not licensed. And so I haven't got time in the very short session this afternoon to go into that, but look at the ICAEW website, look at that regulatory advisory, because if you're not sure whether you're going to cross over the boundaries, then, you need to look into it. Perhaps getting a license is the safest approach. Okay. So as you can see, generally speaking, people see that this work fits in very well with the work that you do already. If you're big into tax planning, elder care, trust work, then, probate is the natural extension to the work that you are doing. And as Mike said earlier, when we were putting the course and all our material together, we did talk to a contentious probate practitioner, a solicitor. Obviously, as we've already said, as accountants, we can only do uncontentious work. Most solicitors only do uncontentious work. And so when we spoke to the guy who was a contentious probate practitioner, he actually firmly believes that in 10 years' time, the vast majority of probate work is going to be done by accountants, because our skill set is so much better suited to this type of work. Now, I don't want to upset anybody if we have any lawyers in the room, but has anybody seen IHT computations prepared by lawyers? Yeah, estate accounts prepared by lawyers. We're so much better at that type of work, aren't we? It's a natural extension to what we do. And certainly, you can read the comments on the screen there. That fits in with what the respondents to the survey were saying. And that includes those who've not yet taken out a licence or even done the training. Everybody understands why we would want to do it. Now, in terms of structures, no, as Mike said, not everybody within their practice are going to be doing probate work. Generally speaking, we're seeing most firms setting up a small specialist team to conduct this work. Now, clearly, if you're a sole practitioner, then you're going to become an authorised firm. Most other firms are going to go down the ABS route and become licensed. And as you can see, in terms of respondents, by far the vast majority of practices either have one or two or three authorised individuals to carry out this work. We've got nobody offering or having more than 8 authorised individuals. So it is a small team to start off with. And remember, we have got those two routes. As I say, most firms, when we're offering a small team, unless we're a sole practitioner, are going to go down the ABS route and become a licensed firm. We asked questions about how many clients you expect to get in your first year of offering the service. The blue lines are those that are trained. The green ones are those that are already authorised to do this work. And you can see there are similarities in terms of the spread and the responses there. Again, nobody is expecting this to be the next, I'm trying to think of a next tax return type service. It's not going to automatically overnight become huge. Now, Mike's going to talk about the marketing, and certainly in other areas of the survey, it's clear that most firms expect this to be a slow growth, a slow burn type area. But what's clear to us with the firms that we've dealt with and in the responses to the survey is if you have a planned launch strategy, a marketing strategy in place, then you're going to do much better. A lot of firms get very excited and say, yes, we're going to do the training, yes, we're going to become authorised, and then, oh, we're a bit busy, it's tax return season, and then, you know, they're surprised when they don't actually get any clients and they don't get any fees. So, as I say, Mike's going to pick up later on the actual marketing and launch strategies for this survey. But as you can see, most firms, generally speaking, are expecting to only get between 1 and 10 clients in their first year. Now, clearly, Mike at Reeves has done much better than that, but they have a strategy. They had a strategy in place for marketing this service. We'll come back to that a little bit more in a moment. But as I say, a lot of firms are literally just waiting for clients to die, which is, you know, we can do better than that. You know, clients have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. You know, as I say, I don't want to step on Mike's toes and steal his thunder, but there's got to be more opportunity than actually just waiting for our clients that we have to die. So in tandem with expected clients in the year one, we also did a survey more on the authorised side of the expected fees in the year. And again, most of you seem to believe that this is going to be a slow burn. So we've only got 4 firms who actually believe that their fees are going to be between 50 and 100,000. Now, certainly talking to Mike earlier, Reeves are already way in excess of that. But, you know, a lot of firms, especially when we haven't got much marketing in place and we're just waiting for people to die, the fee levels are perceived to be reasonably low in the first year, which is why marketing, promotion, and a proper launch strategy are going to be essential to being successful and covering your costs in the first year. Because certainly we do get comments from people that they're concerned about the costs associated with licensing, with the levies, etc., and whether they're actually going to meet them. But as you can see there, that's the expected range of fees from our survey. We also asked people if they, what they've actually achieved in fees is as they expected it to be. And in response to that, 16 out of the 28 that responded to that question were either on track or had more than exceeded their fee levels, which meant that we've got 12 left who hadn't achieved their expectations. And again, the main reason for this was that they hadn't had time to tell anybody that they were actually doing this yet. And it was down to more, not the work not being there, but actually not having time to invest in actually promoting the service. So again, marketing really is key. Mike touched on how Reeves are charging for this service. The overriding result on this was that most of you intend to charge on a time-charged basis. So time on the clock is how you will charge. Some are intending to charge a premium rate for probate work, And we did have the odd one or two who were looking at charging a percentage of the estate. Now, what the probate regulations say is that whatever you charge must be fair and reasonable. And whatever you charge has to be agreed by the personal representatives. Okay. Some, certainly in very simple estate cases, are looking at a fixed fee package. But as I say, just so that you might, if you're trying to work out what you're going to do, by far the vast majority are charging on the hourly rate. Some practitioners are concerned about finding an alternate. Because if you're a sole practitioner, authorised individual, then you must find an alternate for probate services. Now, if you're one of a range of partners within a firm and you're the only authorised individual, it's not mandatory to have an alternate in place, although it would be advisable to have somebody just in case anything happened to you. Okay, your partner can be pushed through the SWAT exam fairly quickly, but it's advisable to have some arrangements in place. Now, when you get an alternate for probate work, it doesn't have to be an accountant. I guess a lot of you will prefer it to be an accountant, but it can be a lawyer too. So your local lawyer could actually act as your alternate. Some people may struggle to find, or, we've found that people are struggling. We've had people ring us up and say, we're struggling to find an alternate. I think if that's the case, firstly, if you come on our courses, chat to other people on the course. Chat to others who are there, because, they're likely to be in the same boat as you. And I think ICAEW will help you. Will they help you? No. Oh, right. Okay. we tried a marriage brokering service, and it did become complicated. But ICAEW do publish a register of those who are authorised and accredited to do this work. And therefore, you can look at that list and see if there is anybody in your locale, maybe not too close, but, fairly close, who you could contact and potentially act as your alternate. Now, Pat's mentioned earlier that we have this register. There are 196 firms to date that are actually on that list. So hopefully there will be somebody near you, and that shouldn't really be a stumbling block. The other big concern is what solicitors are going to say. Now, some of them haven't yet worked it out. Some of them haven't yet realised that we as accountants can become authorised to conduct this work. And certainly for those of you who are thinking about applying, one of the big stumbling blocks is what your solicitors are going to say, what the local solicitors are going to say. And I have spoken with some fairly big firms who have decided not to go down the accreditation route because they're worried about us upsetting solicitors. Now, when we asked those of you that are already authorised and licensed what the reaction of solicitors has been, 43.8% said there's been absolutely no change. Some said there's been a little bit of grumbling, but no change. We're still getting all the referrals we got previously. Only 2.1% of the respondents said there'd been adverse comments and any noticeable difference in referrals. Now, I was going to pick this up on the next slide, but actually some of the firms that have decided, okay, we've done the training, it's been useful, it's going to help us support our clients. When the solicitors have found out that you're trained to do this work, their junior solicitors aren't. And so they're actually finding that although they're not accredited to do the probate bit, they're getting more estate administration from the local solicitors because they haven't got the skills in-house to do it. So, whilst we might not go down the accreditation route, there's still scope for obtaining extra work. Some people said it's too early yet to actually tell. Maybe when they wake up and realise that we are doing this work, it might be different. But that's the findings as they stand at the moment. In terms of expectations for the future, 41.7% of you were very positive about the offering of probate and that this would be a really good service. As I say, I see it as a natural extension of the core services that you provide to your clients. 35.4% believed there would be modest growth in this area. But as I said, over the years, and I wouldn't mind betting that in 10 years' time, if we asked you or we did this survey again, our response in terms of fees and client levels would be very, very different. The answers will be very, very different. A number think it's going to be a slow burn, but those are those that aren't actually promoting it to anybody. And when I say sort of launch the service, market the service, I also include within that your own teams. Now, we've done mystery shopping exercises for firms in the past, pretending to ring up and ask the firm whether they can offer a particular service. And one of them was as basic as a business startup. And the woman that answered the phone said, "Oh, no, we don't do that." So, you know, when it comes to educating people about probate, the support team as well need to know, the people answering the phone need to know that you are offering this service. So, what is holding firms back at the moment? What things are worrying firms and making them sort of hesitate about applying for the service? A lot of firms are worried about the cost. Now, I think if you launch your service properly, if you promote your service properly, you should be able to cover those costs. Because I think, you know, this has got to be a growth area for accountants. And Mike's going to talk us through, after coffee, suggested approaches to making sure that we do launch it. People have said they're worried about solicitors, but our survey doesn't back that up. The survey's not showing that solicitors are actually, acting detrimentally to your practices. Some are worried about the training. Now, dare I say, hands up if you've been through the SWAT course. Wow. Welcome, everybody. Was it awful? Oh, no, it was fun. It was great fun. I know a number of you were certainly worried about the exam, well, we don't call it an exam, we call it an assessment. But it's only a 2-hour paper, and I'm assuming most of you here passed? Oh, no, you're not going to put your hand up if you didn't, are you? So, but the training isn't going to be too horrendous. You have got ongoing CPD in accordance with, you know, the CPD regime within ICAEW. You have to carry out CPD commensurate with the work that you're doing, etc. But there are providers offering these CPD programs for those of you licensed to carry out the work. I shouldn't say this, but I sign up to the STEP newswire. And that just gives me really good insight into what's changing so that I know I need to go and research something. So, you know, there are materials out there that can help you. Alternates were an issue, but I think that's just an excuse, because I think you can find an alternate because you can access the ICAEW's listing. We did have people who came on the course, and I think because initially you had to be an ICAEW member to be accredited, we were getting the elder statesmen coming on the course who have subsequently retired. So, you know, that's why they're not doing the work. Just a quick aside from something I was saying with talking to Janet and Pat earlier, if your structure does change, you have to make sure that once there's been a change, you are still eligible to offer this service. And you need to inform ICAEW of the changes so that they can be assured that you are still eligible to conduct this service. So do watch out for that. We also had firms saying, well, actually, I'm a charity practice. We specialise in charities. This doesn't sit with our work, which is fair enough. But I don't think any of those sort of problem areas or those sort of concerns are insurmountable. Okay, so, you know, that's my offering this afternoon, looking at the survey. As I said, if you would like a full copy, and it does make interesting reading because it is interesting to look at the comments that practitioners are making. If you see one of the SWAT team at the back, give them your details and they will email you out a copy of the assessment. Thank you.
Actually, just to pick up on a couple of the points there, certainly, you know, CPD is an issue, and as well as STEP, I'm sure the guys at the back have actually put together a probate CPD program for continuing with that. If you decide that this is not for you, and it is not for everybody, I think you need to be very aware of the line between what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do. Jane hinted at some people were regularising what they'd been doing for years without realising it was illegal. I have been into firms where one office was just walking right down the line into passing all the PA1 stuff over to the solicitors, and another office said, line? What line? And was doing everything. And I don't know, but I suspect that QAD may be looking at non-authorised firms just to check to see whether there's stuff going on that means you're stepping over the line. If you do, as well as being illegal, which is what Pat said, bear in mind that you're now operating outside your authority, and therefore if anything goes wrong, I suspect it will not be covered by your professional indemnity insurance either. This is not something you want to play with. If you're going to go anywhere near it, I would say get authorised so that you don't have to worry about where exactly the line is being drawn.